Now, welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for Finn. We'll then compare those results to the other 48 characters we've done thus far to see where he ranks overall, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before all that, you can already nominate and or vote for which character we do next, which one will be our 50th to rank. Just respond to my pinned comment below with a character name or vote with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and now on to the results for Finn, where we'll see that only 3% of people gave him an A, 15% then thought he belonged in the B tier, 51%, just over half, thought he was an average character and gave him a C, which left 21% of people to give him a D, and a final 10% that said he was an F tier character. And so when we do all the math here and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, that means Finn ends up with an average score of 2.80, which puts him into 46th place overall, and a little ways behind Jar Jar Binks of all characters, not to mention down there with a lot of the other sequel characters, and for what it's worth, he currently ranks second among sequel characters, behind Kylo Ren, who netted a 3.35 and sits in 43rd overall. And speaking of how poorly sequel characters have done here, yes, I will give my usual disclaimer that since I'm not a huge fan of the sequels, that's likely to be reflected to some degree in those who watch my videos, and hence in the results of these polls. In other words, Finn likely would at least fare a bit better if a channel who loves the sequels did the exact same poll, and the best or most accurate results for a character like this would be somewhere between the two, and yes, we can certainly debate how high or low he would truly finish, but for better or worse, 46th is where he currently sits here. And before getting to the comments, let me once again just take a moment to thank everyone who votes, comments, and watches the videos. It is all very, very appreciated. Also, a big thank you to everyone who supports me over on Patreon and helps me keep doing what I'm doing here on YouTube, and hopefully even bigger and better things down the road. But now let's kick things off, as we always do, with the top-rated comment, which this time came to us from Captain DC, who said, "He's the current definition of wasted potential in the sequels." And I mean, in all honesty, we could probably wrap the video and call it a day with this simple and to the point comment, which, in the opinion of many, not only sums up the character of Finn perfectly, but sums up the sequels on the whole as well. But since so many of you decided to indeed take the time to leave some great comments this time, let's get to some more of them, albeit maybe some similar ones. Starting with this one from DJ Salad, who said, B+ to A- as a concept, C tier giving light to Disney's questionable execution. Then there's also this one from Andrew Pavla, who said, concept for his character was a solid A, the way he was handled in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, though, drops him down to a D. There's also this comment from Dan Lin, who said, he went from my favorite character to a bumbling joke. And also this one from FlavaDave39, who said, his character, just the same as all the other so-called characters in the sequel trilogy, is no more than a reflection of bad decisions made by the writers. There was potential for him and the initial premise at the beginning of The Force Awakens, but that potential was squandered, and his story went off the rails along with the entire plot. Of course, we all know now that there was never an overarching plot to begin with, so it's not a surprise at all that Finn's story went absolutely nowhere. Such a waste. Then there's also this comment from Fanana, who said, Finn's story started off so promising with his introduction as a stormtrooper who wanted to escape the First Order. However, after the first movie, all of that potential was thrown away in favor of making him comic relief. Finn could have at least shown some emotion and guilt on his face when killing his old stormtrooper friends, but no, he was shafted to the role of supporting character. Then there's this comment from Eli G, who said, Finn is honestly one of the most disastrous characters in all of Star Wars. He's solid in The Force Awakens, where he learns to be devoted to a cause. Then in The Last Jedi, he learns to be devoted to a cause. Didn't he just do that in the last movie? And by The Rise of Skywalker, Abrams had no idea what to do with him, so he gets shafted to the side. He's a perfect example of how messy the sequels were, and how desperately they needed an actual plan. Okay, so obviously wasted potential are the words or phrase of the day here. I mean, many comments, the majority I'd say, either directly say it or imply they're disappointed that more wasn't done with the character of Finn and the sequels in general. which among other things is just a reminder that virtually no one went into the sequels wanting not to like them, that we almost all went into them with hope and wanting to see something cool and interesting done with these characters we'd heard about, not to mention a great overall concept executed with a terrific story. And a lot of people, both in the comments here this time and just overall, will usually say The Force Awakens was anything from a fine to a great film, but that it hinged on something good coming after it, good answers to all the mysteries, and a good story arc for all the characters that we were introduced to, in order for it to then, of course, stand the test of time, or for it to be viewed as a good movie after the fact or once the sequel trilogy was completed. Problem is, a lot of fans, a lot of people didn't think that happened, and I usually try to explain this to people who get mad at me or mad at others for hating on the sequels. I tell them it's not so much that I or we hate them, though yes, some people do just generally hate them, as much as it is mostly just we ended up being utterly disappointed by them. I mean, there were things that looked potentially great about the sequels. Chief among them just might be the idea of a stormtrooper turning from the bad guys and becoming a Jedi in the end. That was a cool idea or concept, and it was paired with a great actor who many feel, myself included, could have not only pulled it off, but done something truly epic with it, had the writers not failed him, had the potential not been wasted. Okay, and our next comment up here comes to us from Arona, who said, really likable character in The Force Awakens, though it's kind of a problem that he's shooting down stormtroopers without a hint of remorse. I think a good performance from Boyega and a decent, if poorly executed, concept can bump Finn up to a reluctant C for me. Then we have this comment from Ahmet Avinawam, who said, he's strange. He's really shocked to see a dead comrade. He disobeys a direct order to kill innocent civilians. And moments later, he'll cheer when killing a fellow stormtrooper while making a run for it with someone he just met. During The Last Jedi, he lost the opportunity to give his life for a cause he truly believed in and served as comic relief for most of the movie. The Rise of Skywalker gave him a little more character, but it just wasn't enough. He could have been so much more, but I guess that's what happens when you don't have a plan and don't see the characters, but only some check marks. Then there's also this comment from Jason who said, Finn perfectly represents the sequels as a whole, massive potential and enough to pique interest, but ultimately a massive letdown. I mean, come on, he grew up brainwashed and laughs and cheers as he shoots his brothers and sisters, who he knows are also brainwashed. I would have loved to have seen him be a darker character, struggling with his morality through the trilogy. Okay, so I don't necessarily have a problem with Finn blasting his fellow stormtroopers in the hangar to get away, because I get that fight or flight had kicked in. The fact that he looks excited doing it is really strange. You could probably go with a look of grim determination here and it'd work a lot better. But I get that he does what he does in that moment to survive, because he's not really thinking about what he's doing. But it's later on that he should have had a moment, even just a single moment, even though it's probably something that would haunt him for the rest of his life, where he reflected on what he'd done, that he'd killed his fellow stormtroopers, who are, again, just as brainwashed as he was, in order for him to escape, especially considering what set him down this path in the first place, that it was watching his fellow trooper, and presumably a friend, killed and the bloody handprint that he left on his helmet. And like I said, it could have just been a moment, something simple like after he crashed in the desert on Jakku, and he's stripping off his armor, he finds out that he's wounded a bit, that he has a cut or something, and he gets blood on his hand, and then he leaves a bloody handprint on a piece of his own armor. And then looking at this handprint causes him to pause for a couple seconds to remember his friend who set him down this path, the other stormtrooper, and then he even looks back at the other pieces of his stormtrooper armor already taken off and strewn across the desert behind him, showing how he gets to take off his armor and to live a life free of it. But then he looks back at that handprint again and mutters something like, "What have I done?" Or just a look of guilt and shame on his face could have been enough to realize he's thinking about what he had to do up there in order to escape. Or you could just take the character in a whole other direction from the very start. Have him instead pledge to save all his brothers and sisters right there and then as he's looking at this bloody handprint of his. Have this be the moment that sets him down the path to eventually wanting to be a Jedi. That he selfishly ran away for himself, but now he wants to selflessly save everyone he left behind. Instead, as many comments pointed out, instead of having him do nothing but scream Rey for the rest of the trilogy as he chases after her. Alright, and next up here we have this comment from Leaf Green Sniper who said, "Good chemistry with Poe, then dragged through the mud by Rose, and then he's supposed to be a Jedi or something? What was his deal? I don't know. Lots of wasted potential for a turned stormtrooper. C for me, I guess. Boyega was pretty good." Also, we have this comment from Jordan Letkeman who said, easily the character I was most excited for coming out of The Force Awakens. All I wanted was the fantastic adventures of Finn and Poe. They had a little time together on screen, but it felt so genuine and fun. It is still hard to describe my disappointment at what we got from Finn in The Last Jedi. To its credit, we got more Finn and Poe in The Rise of Skywalker, but it was too little too late. It's actually heartbreaking that John Boyega was left feeling so used by the Star Wars franchise and likely won't return, because he is one of the few characters in the entire trilogy I would like to see more of. And easily one of the biggest mistakes of The Last Jedi, which is saying something, is not having Poe and Finn together for the B-plot of the film, not having them go together to get fuel for the fleet or whatever it might be they thought could save them. Their chemistry was fantastic in the first film, and then you split them up in the second and try to salvage it in the third. But anyway, if you want to teach Poe about responsibility or the responsibility of leadership, keep everything at the start of the movie with sacrificing the bombers to take out the Dreadnought and Leia being mad at him because of it. Keep that all relatively the same, but then instead of having him butt heads with Holdo while Finn runs off with Rose to learn about capitalism and animal cruelty, you send Finn and Poe to a First Order fuel depot, a secret one Finn knows about for some reason, and one that maybe isn't heavily protected, and show that Finn now refuses to kill his former fellow stormtroopers after making his vow back in the first movie that somehow, someway he'd liberate all his brothers and sisters. Finn could basically show Poe that you have a responsibility to those you serve with, or to those you lead especially, that their lives just might be more important than winning one fight at any cost. That if you lose yourself to win a war, have you really won a war at all? I mean, it's basically the same message Rose gives Finn with the whole saving what you love instead of fighting what you hate, and I'm not sure why Finn is getting that message, why it's something he needed to learn. But anyway, in my opinion, it's the message done better and given to a guy who is eventually going to presumably take Leia's place and needs to step up and be a true leader. Alright, and moving on now, we have this comment from Nico Hodge, who said, Finn was the character I, a young black Star Wars fan, was most excited for. To see someone that looked like me be the protagonist of the new trilogy was invaluable. Sure, we had Mace and Lando, but one was a complete jerk and the other was shady to say the least. Finn, who was sold as a Jedi in the trailers of The Force Awakens, felt meaningful to me, but then they dashed every hope and excitement I had for him, and rubbed salt in the wound with each consecutive sequel. Just watching The Force Awakens and seeing how he basically is a runaway slave who gets beaten with a stick by Rey and shocked by BB-8 made my heart sink. Then to find out he was a janitor for the First Order. I don't even need to go into The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker, because we all know it gets worse from there. C for me, but he could have been so much more. And the greatest irony of the sequels just might be that Disney and Lucasfilm were so busy patting themselves on the back for making the movies more diverse, or including diverse characters like a black and also a female lead, or an Asian star in the second movie, that they kind of forgot to make them great characters. What they never seem to realize is virtually no one was opposed to anything they were doing. I think most fans are all for a diverse cast of characters in Star Wars. I mean, if you're a true Star Wars fan, you know that the Star Wars galaxy is primarily made up of humans, that they span multiple worlds across said galaxy. So of course the people or humans of the Star Wars galaxy would absolutely come in all sorts of colors. That is just a given, I think. As should a female Jedi be a given. Heck, it's something we've not only seen many times before, but that makes absolute sense if you know Star Wars. You know that basically it's random who becomes a Jedi or who is Force sensitive, which means there's essentially a 50-50 chance that a woman would be gifted with the Force to be strong enough to be a Jedi. These are all the things that most Star Wars fans are 100% fine with, yet Disney and Lucasfilm had to make a big deal out of them, not realizing we were all for it from the start. Alright, and now time for just a few final comments, starting with this one from T8, who said, Finn as a character is the epitome of good idea, bad execution. The only good thing about Finn is that it introduced me to John Boyega as an actor. I'd love to see him in a good Star Wars film one day. Then there's also this one from Thunder Jungle, who said, complete waste of a potentially incredible Stormtrooper redemption arc. I feel bad for John Boyega because the guy is really talented and just got screwed by terrible writing. Also have this comment from Valen, who said, honestly he had enough potential to be the most interesting character in the sequel trilogy, but Disney mucked that up. Next, this one from John Smith, who said, you could have replaced Finn with a droid that shouted Rey and nothing would have changed. 0 of 5 stars. We also have a comment from Silver Spire Z who said, whenever you look up the definition for wasted potential, all that it shows is a picture of Finn's face. John Boyega and his character deserved so much better. And finally, we have this one from JB who simply said, Finn should have become a Jedi, Luke should have trained him, the end. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about Finn, or what you think about what I or anyone else had to say about him here in this video, or you can nominate and or vote for the 50th character that we do. Either way, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.